Mason Green had never liked closing time. By day, Honey Ridge Orchard's pumpkin patch maze was a postcard of autumn perfection. Scarlet maples ringing plump orange pumpkins, the tang of cider threading through the air, families snapping photos beside hay bale pyramids. But after dark, when the last tractor-pulled wagon rumbled out of the parking lot and the midway lights flickered off one strand at a time, the place felt as hollow as a cold gourd. Mason wiped the lip of his copper cider kettle, steam fogging his glasses, and told himself not to imagine things lurking behind the stacked hay. He turned the brass spigot, tasted for sweetness, and nodded. Another good batch. He had 2 goals this season: pay off the loan on his renovated stand and convince Clara Windrow, proprietor of Honey Ridge, that she needed his cider for the farm market year-round. Tonight's Maze After Dark event, a glow-stick race through the corn designed by maize artisan Oliver Holt, was the biggest draw so far. If Mason could keep customers crowding his counter, maybe Clara would sign. The floodlights snapped off. Only the pumpkin string lights outside his stand burned now. Over by the barn, the silhouettes of the other vendors packed up. Tammy Jo Price cranking shut her funnel cake fryer, Miguel Lopez bungeeing crates of caramel apples, and Luke Windrow, the boss's son, hoisting hay bales onto a flatbed for tomorrow's hayride circle. Mason locked his cash box inside the cooler and stepped out, stretching. The night smelled of leaf rot and cinnamon. He almost headed for his truck, but something tugged at him. He hadn't seen Oliver Holt all evening. The eccentric maze designer usually took a bow on the hay wagon at the end of the flashlight tour, bragging about secret dead ends and geometry. Tonight, Clara had announced that Oliver was indisposed, then hustled into the office. A muffled metallic thump drifted from the loafing shed behind the barn. Mason froze. Another thump, then a soft scrape, like straw dragged across boards. Every horror movie instinct said, "Climb in your truck and go home." But Mason had grown up on orchards. Odd noises usually meant loose livestock or malfunctioning fans, things that got worse if ignored. He grabbed the flashlight he kept clipped beneath the cider stand and crossed the gravel yard. The loafing shed's half door stood ajar, a sliver of amber moonlight slicing the interior. The barn cats shouldered past him, tails puffed. When Mason swung his flashlight, the beam caught a tumble of hay bales toppled from a waist-high stack. From inside that tumble protruded a single dark boot. "Oliver," Mason whispered, already knowing. He heaved 2 small square bales aside. The dust made him cough, and when the hay cleared, Oliver Holt's body slumped forward, face grey, neck bent at an impossible angle. His linen scarf, an affectation that always made him look like an old-time aviator, was twisted tight, buried in the straw. Mason touched the cold wrist. No pulse. For one selfish second, Mason's brain screamed about permits, news trucks, and how a death might scare away the weekend crowds he depended on. Then shame flushed in. A man was dead. He thumbed 911 into his phone. Sheriff D. McClure arrived with 2 deputies, lights spraying the barns red-blue. They taped off the shed, questioned every lingering vendor, and escorted Clara Windrow from her office, her face pale as chaff. An ambulance carried Oliver's body toward the county morgue, its siren silent. By 1 a.m. the deputies had left. The cornfield rustled again, and Mason sat on the cider stand porch, mug of lukewarm brew between his palms. He couldn't shake the image of Oliver's scarf knotted in straw. Accidents happened with hay bales, but scarves didn't fling themselves around necks. Clara eventually trudged over. "Thank you for calling it in," she said, voice hoarse. "Sheriff says it looks like foul play." Mason nodded. Oliver had enemies. Oliver collected enemies the way some folks collect bottle caps. She tried to laugh, but failed. Inventive genius, impossible co-worker. He changed the maze 3 times after Luke laid the corn. Extra paths meant extra mowing, extra fuel. Luke was furious. Mason remembered the farm owner's son cursing while his tractor chewed new rows in July heat. "Luke's temper runs hot," he murmured. Clara massaged her temples. "Sheriff will handle it. We open at 9 tomorrow. Ready your cider, Mr. Green." She walked away, a woman refusing to crumble. Mason watched her disappear, then flicked off his porch light. But curiosity rooted him to the boards. Something about Oliver's death felt wrong in his orchard world, and he couldn't sleep until he understood. Morning brought a glare of golden sun and a news van barricading the gravel lane. Patrons still poured in despite the taped-off shed. Tragedy, Mason discovered, sharpened customers' thirst for comfort. By noon, he was ladling cider non-stop. Yet every time he lifted the kettle lid, his brain replayed the haystack crime scene. At 2 o'clock, Luke Windrow strode up, sweat darkening his flannel, flecks of hay clinging to his jeans. He slapped $5 on the counter. "Extra large," Mason filled a cup. "Rough night, huh?" Luke drained half his cider before answering. "Sheriff grilled me till sunrise because Mum said I was angry at Oliver. I was here baling hay for the wagon rides, but no one saw me the whole time." His smile was taut. "That doesn't look good." "Did you see Oliver yesterday?" Mason asked. "Not after dusk." "Look, Holt loved mind games. He probably staged some stunt and it backfired." Luke crushed the cup and stalked off. Mason didn't buy it. The scarf had been yanked tight. That took furious hands. The next person to queue up bore a whale-patterned tote and a hurricane of perfume. Tammy Jo Price. A funnel cake queen with a gossip queen streak. "Poor Oliver," she sighed, accepting her cider. "I warned him that ego of his would kill him. Did you hear he pitched a fit over Clara's marketing banner? Said it ruined the aesthetic integrity of his maze." "Where were you last night after closing?" Mason asked lightly. Tammy Jo's eyebrows rose. "Oh, playing detective, are you?" She tapped her phone. "Posting new pictures for the farm's Insta. My trailer has Wi-Fi." She swept away, scarf fluttering, a bright orange scarf. Mason's pulse hitched, but hers was knitted wool, not fine linen. That evening, Mason locked up early. He needed to see the maze itself, a place the deputies hadn't yet released to the public. He crossed the silent midway toward the towering green walls of corn, flashlight bouncing in his palm. Paper police tapes sagged across the archway, easy to duck under. Inside, the stalks rustled like 1,000 whispers. Glow paint arrows Oliver had added for night races dotted the dirt, pointing nowhere in daylight. Mason followed the route toward the center, thinking like a cider maker. Every turning point, a junction of ingredients, wrong choice ruins the batch. Halfway in, he found a trampled patch of stalks and a discarded plastic zip tie. Sheriff markers circled the area in orange chalk. Listening, Mason heard a faint hum. Flies. He parted the corn. A shallow pit gaped beneath, root clods piled high. It looked freshly dug, then hurriedly filled. Deputies must have missed it in the dark. He fetched a fallen stalk and probed. 6 inches down, the stick hit canvas. Tarpaulin. He scraped more soil, revealing folds of forest green plastic. Something heavy had lain here, then been hauled out, likely Oliver before he was stuffed in hay. Whoever moved him carried enough strength or equipment to lug a dead weight through corn rows, but switched hiding spots mid-plan. Why? Crack. A stalk snapped behind him. Mason straightened. In the flashlight halo stood Luke Windrow, hands shoved in pockets. "You shouldn't be in here," Luke said. His eyes flicked to the disturbed earth. "Neither should I, probably." "Did you dig this?" Mason asked. Luke's jaw flexed. "I wanted to bury a time capsule for the farm's 50th. Surprise Mom tomorrow. But Sheriff would twist it, so I left." Mason studied him. Was that truth? A large tin box could match the pit. What was inside? Old seed catalogues, Grandpa's pocket knife, some photos. Luke shrugged, but sweat dotted his forehead, though the air was cool. "Look, I'm tired of being treated like a suspect." "Then help me figure out who is," Mason said. "Did Oliver threaten anyone?" Luke hesitated. "Just Miguel, maybe. Oliver caught him clipping pumpkins early to sell at the farmer's market. Said he'd tell Mom. And Tammy Jo, she thought the maze funneled customers away from her fried dough." The wind shifted, rattling leaves above them. Mason's flashlight bobbed. In the flare, he saw dark streaks on Luke's knuckles. Mud, maybe, or dried blood. Luke followed his gaze, hid his hands. Without another word, he turned, footprints crunching off through the rows. That night, Mason lay in his tiny apartment over the orchard store, unable to doze. The tarp pit, the scarf, the clenched jaw behind Luke's beard, none of it aligned neatly. He rose, brewed chamomile, and unrolled Oliver's promotional poster he'd borrowed from the stand wall. The maze blueprint covered one corner, a spiral advancing to a kernel-shaped center ringed by 7 gates. The brochure boasted, "Can you find the harvest heart?" Mason traced the spiral with a pencil. The center, not the edges, mattered. If a body was hidden, Oliver's signature flair would tempt him to use that heart. Mason checked the time. 3:17 a.m. In 5 hours, patrons would swarm the farm. If evidence lay inside, daylight feet would obliterate it. He pulled on boots. Fog hugged the rows when Mason re-entered the maze. Birds hadn't yet broken the silence. He moved quickly, counting gates. 1, 2. A soft chime startled him. Ahead, pale string lights ringed a small clearing, Oliver's grand finale, normally reserved for nighttime tours. The heart. In its center, a low platform held a scarecrow stitched from burlap sacks. Mason's beam skimmed across its straw arms and snagged on something metallic at its feet, a dented thermos. He knelt. Inside floated a USB flash drive sealed in plastic. Attached to the scarecrow's buttons was a tag. For Clara, play opening night. Mason's insides prickled. He pocketed the drive and backed out, senses raw. Footsteps rustled the rows again. He was being followed. He killed his flashlight and crouched. A silhouette emerged. Miguel Lopez, shoulders hunched inside a bomber jacket, cigarette ember glowing. He passed within 10 feet, muttering Spanish curses about "maldito gringo artista." Miguel's boots paused at the platform. Then he spat, flicked ash, and retraced his path. Mason waited until silence returned, then slipped away. By 9 o'clock, Mason was in Clara's office above the apple sorter, fan rattling overhead. He set the USB on her desk. "What's this?" she asked. "Something Oliver intended you to see. It might explain everything." Clara plugged the drive into her laptop, clicked the lone file. Grainy video filled the screen. Oliver's workshop, shot selfie style. "October 18th, Oliver said, pale but smug. "If anything untoward happens to me, look here." He adjusted his scarf. Behind him loomed the scarecrow. I discovered the windrow heir, Luke, is storing illegal fireworks in the tractor shed. He plans a pyrotechnic finale during Saturday's youth concert, never mind the dry crop. I confronted him tonight. He threatened me. I shan't be bullied. Clara, remedy this before your farm goes up in flames. The video ended. Clara's hand covered her mouth. Fireworks, dry corn is tinder. And Oliver's dead, Mason said softly. Someone silenced him. A pounding rattled the door. Sheriff McClure strode in, radio crackling. Need you both at the station. New evidence. She eyed the USB in Clara's grasp. What's that? Mason explained quickly. The sheriff's expression hardened. Miguel just came forward. Says he saw Luke dragging a tarp through the maze, swore he'd keep quiet for a cut of the fireworks money. Let's move. The interview room smelled of stale coffee. Luke sat at the steel table, wrists cuffed, bruise blooming on his cheek where deputies had tackled him fleeing the shed. Mason waited outside with Clara, tension stretching like orchard twine. After 2 hours, Sheriff McClure emerged. Finished, want the rundown? Mason and Clara nodded. Luke admitted it, confirmed the fireworks scheme. Oliver found the boxes, recorded that video, confronted him in the shed. They fought. Luke shoved him. Oliver fell, struck his neck on the hay hook. Panicked, Luke wrapped the scarf, tried to make it look like strangulation, stuffed the body under bales. Planned to dump him in the river before dawn, but you, she pointed at Mason, stumbled in first. Clara sagged against the wall. My son. Accidental death, then cover-up, the sheriff said, gentler. But the cover-up makes it manslaughter. Clara wept quietly, cider-rich perfume from Mason's clothes mingling with her tears. The following weekend, the pumpkin patch maze reopened, a new sign posted at the entrance, in memory of Oliver Holt, master of mazes. Patrons walked solemnly past, then lost themselves in laughter among the stalks. Life, Mason realized, pushed forward like vines seeking sun. Clara stepped to Mason's stand, eyes rimmed red but steady. I've decided to keep the orchard running year-round, she said. With cider, of course. Interested? Mason inhaled the steam of his freshest batch. Sweet, sharp, full of promise. He met her gaze. Absolutely. He filled 2 mugs, handed her one. Together they turned to watch families queue beneath fluttering orange pennants, truth harvested, future uncertain yet ripe.